Oftentimes when something is inextricably badass, it creates expectations that are just difficult to satisfy. And truly, in an era of short looping videos posted to Instagram with the explicit intention of satisfying an itch, how is a linear sequence of badass events meant to compare? Well, sometimes pretty damn well, actually. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on gameranx, 10 of the most badass yet satisfying moments in video games. Starting off with number 10, Red Dead Redemption 2's perfect quick draw against 3 guys. So one of the great joys of Red Dead 2 is being able to live out that cowboy fantasy. They make it super easy to be a classic Wild West gunslinger with the Deadeye mechanic, but it's not always available. Sometimes you're out of energy and you have to take out a group of ruffians quickly, and when you do it manually, wowie wow, is that Wild West legend material. Now, the criteria for what satisfying is here, I kind of alluded to in the intro. It's not just like, oh man, that was cool. If that were the case, basically everything that is badass would fall in this category. Those looping Instagram videos I'm talking about always do something perfect that fits together. It just feels right. And depending on how you get the drop on said ruffians, actually getting a series of quick draw headshots isn't the most amazing feat. Enemies seem to have pretty realistic reaction times in the game, so if they're not ready for you, it really only takes a second to pump them all full of lead. So it's not necessarily super impressive. That being said, it's still badass as hell. You cleared the house, you didn't rely on the clearing house game mechanic, and all the pieces still came together. That is satisfying in the sense of the word we are using it here. And number 9 is Max Payne 3's airport terminal. We're mostly talking about badass gameplay moments. Sometimes they're purely player driven, sometimes they're guided by the game. This one's definitely one of the second ones. There's a lot of good stuff in Max Payne 3, but they saved the best for last. The final level, there's this single iconic moment where you reach the airport terminal and it's swarming with enemies. When you enter, the killer soundtrack starts to kick in and you're thrown into the biggest fight in the entire game. It's hard to describe what makes this sequence so transcendent. It's just incredibly badass. The fact the game's quickly approaching the climax, there's this driving beat playing, you're running in an almost surreal environment, like it's an airport terminal, but it's a shootout, which is, I mean, even as not what happens in the most recent Mission Impossible movie in the airport. Like, you really don't see shootouts in airports. And again, this is one of those things where a bunch of different pieces come together really well and become very satisfying. Even if you play like crap, it's still cool, but if you're doing well, it's even better. And number 8, in Ghost of Tsushima, killing a group of enemies with a single dance of wrath. It's probably one of the most satisfying and overpowered abilities in Ghost of Tsushima, is the Dance of Wrath, which is basically like pure anime. And because Ghost of Tsushima, although obviously to call it realistic by genuine real standards of what would happen in real life is probably it's a stretch. But in terms of video games, it's among the more grounded. That said, when Jin sheaths his sword, holds still for a moment, and strikes down up to 3 enemies, basically at a single time, is pretty much the ultimate samurai move. It's also like super cool when you take off like an enemy commander in a face-off and it's instant. And it's not just badass because it's badass. It also causes terror. So any like enemies that are left, they'll just run. Even though it's just an unlockable move, it's just so unique and fun to use. And it makes you feel like a huge badass because you appear to be at the very top of the samurai game when you use this move. And number 7 is Trepping 2, No Hand, No Problem. The entire final mission of Trepping 2 is just amazingly badass. I'll give you a little bit of a minor spoiler warning here. It's not something that's going to ruin the game for you, but at least I said something. But you're betrayed by the Syndicate, where they take you back to the central hub base of the game, and they try to incinerate you in an oven. So you break your bonds, you steal a guy's gun, shoot his buddy, and that is how you start the mission. It only gets crazier from there. The madness escalates further as your guy rampages through the base, and when you get far enough, they reveal their trump card, a clone meant to replace you, who ambushes you with a samurai sword. Things go completely off the deep end here. You scare the guy off for the first time, and suddenly there's a rapidly counting down time load on the screen, which you have to rush to the computer and turn off a bomb before it blows, but it's an ambush, and the clone, called 107, slices your arm clear off. You'd think that'd slow our man down a bit, but no. You can't take hostages or dual-wield weapons, sure, but you're as much of a killing machine as before. Speaking of taking hostages, this game has probably the most satisfying version of that mechanic, because you're not just grabbing guys as human shields, you can also pull the pin on their grenades and throw them at a group of enemies, making them a human grenade. Hearing an entire squad of guys go, "Oh shit! Ah shit, that's a bomb, man." They don't say that, don't worry. That's not a spoiler. But they all flop on the ground and explode. Man, you're really just an unstoppable killing machine, and Trepping 2's ending is just an unstoppable, insane set of factors that all come together in the most unlikely, ridiculous, enjoyable way. And number 6 is Assassin's Creed's parkour. These games have their peaks and valleys when it comes to their parkour. Sometimes it's super satisfying, and sometimes it's a bit of a drag, because your guy ends up just kind of jumping around like an idiot and is seemingly unable to follow any kind of real direction. And with Assassin's Creed Unity, they try to fix a lot of the problems that previously plagued parkour, which lots of P's in that sentence. And while it's still not perfect, there's some pretty damn impressive stuff you can pull off with a little practice. Yeah, you probably heard that one forming in my head as I said it. Rarely in video games can you really do things that seem as truly badass as what parkour experts can actually accomplish in real life, but there are moments where amazing things happen. It's one of those things that can't be described. It just kind of has to be seen. At first, yes, in the game, you'll look like a flailing idiot. You're not just an overpowered badass with parkour immediately. Most of the time, if you're not running around on rooftops in a straight line, you're gonna look like a fool. But on rare occasions where you're able to pull off something amazing and chain a few things together, it's incredible how satisfying Assassin's Creed can become. And number 5 is the Resident Evil 4 remake, the godly knife fighting, easily one of the greatest additions to the remake possible. And in terms of any remake, can you think of something that has added as much to a remake as this? Resident Evil 4 is already a great game, and this really propelled it to the next level. The knife adds so much depth to already meaty combat, and they give the weapon enough drawbacks. It's not just something you can use to entirely dominate the game. Balance is the order of the day. The knife has to be used selectively because it can break pretty easily after just some use, but that's the only real drawback. Everything else completely amazing. Satisfying parry, powerful when used properly. In the right hands, it's the GOAT. It feels so good to use the knife to deflect projectiles and then follow up with a close-range stab. Even better is the boss fight against Krauser, where he's best fought using the knife exclusively. Instead of being an awkward QTE like in the original, or a more gimmicky boss fight, this version of Krauser you take on with straight-up game mechanics, and it's a really good fight. It somehow manages to be cinematic and mechanically intense at the same time, especially once you get good at countering and deflecting his attacks. This time, Leon isn't just a badass when he fights Krauser in the cutscene. When you actually fight him, he's a badass, which of course makes the game much more satisfying as a whole.
Not bad. I didn't expect anything less. After all, it's a damn shame.
At number 4 is Elden Ring, killing the boss with a badass final attack. This is one of those things that's really unlikely to happen on your first go around with the game, or any Souls game for that matter. Most of the time, the final hit on the boss is unceremonious as hell, usually just the safest thing you can even get away with. Finishing fights in this series is rarely heart-pumping. Yeah, you get the satisfying full-screen message saying you killed the boss, but that's usually it. Most of the time, rather than feeling like a badass, it's just pure relief that the fight is over. At least that's usually how I feel. Sometimes, however, you get cocky. You call your shot or try to end the fight with a big spectacular move that'll make you look like a total champ. Usually, not gonna lie, it ends in failure. But for the one time it actually works, you manage to stop a dragon midair with a crazy charging attack, it's all worth it. There's always a sense of satisfaction when you beat a boss in these games, but beating them with style is how the true badasses do it. And number 3 is Gears of War. Marcus calling his shots. Speaking of calling shots, the Gears series filled with badass moments, but they are rarely as organic and sort of bring together a couple of threads into a satisfying culmination as this. In Act 2, Chapter 2, you pick up a sniper rifle, walk up to this ridge, and you see a distant enemy patrol.
Marcus, look down there.
Anybody need some sniper practice?
If you want, you can just keep going, but hey, you got the rifle and these guys are easy targets, so why aren't you going to take some sniper practice? What makes this badass is the way Marcus responds. Every time you get a kill against one of these guys, Marcus calls it out from 1 up to 5.
That's 1. That's 2. That's 3.
And it's just so badass in a totally seamless way. It's not some set piece. You aren't forced to do it. There's no cutscenes. It's just a guy popping heads and calling it out. But damn if it's not cool.
That's 5, mother...
And number 2 is Sekiro, mastering the Mikiri counter. One of the more initially difficult abilities to master is, of course, like I just said, the Mikiri counter. The second of 3 unique counter moves in the game. First time you see it in the menu, you're probably like me, and you're like, well, never gonna use that. Seems difficult, too situational. I didn't buy this game to have to learn things. No, anyway, in practice, it's actually really useful, and most of all, really badass. Like, just look at it. When an enemy does a forward stab, your dude dashes forward and stomps down on the sword to momentarily stun the opponent. It's incredible, and with it, you can turn some really challenging fights into not easy fights, but easier. Now, getting the timing right on this move is gonna take practice, but once you master it, it's one of those all-time great combinations of satisfying and badass. What makes it so tough to get right is the move is so specific. You can only do it when an enemy is charging up a stab attack, which you can only know by learning the attack patterns. And to do it, you have to counterintuitively do a forward dash rather than a backward block. So if you screw it up, you leave yourself wide open. But if you pull it off, you get in multiple free hits. The animation is cool as hell. It's dangerous to pull off, and if you're good at it, you can totally clown on a boss. It's amazing. And finally, at number 1, the Batman Arkham series, disabling an enemy's gun and sneaking up on him. One of the things that make these games so fun is how they actually put in the work to make you feel like Batman. Batman doesn't just sneak around like a chump. He's a predator. He is not the prey. He is not sneaking around because he's scared. He's vengeance. Where are the drugs? These games do such a good job presenting that aspect of Batman, though. One of the coolest things about any given stealth sequence is just how the very presence of Batman scares people. In most games, bad guys are fairly unflappable, but in Arkham, the thugs are kind of legitimately scared of Batman, which they should be. At first, they're kind of overconfident, they're throwing out insults.
Show yourselves, chicken!
But as Batman becomes real to them, they get increasingly jumpy.
I'm not scared, you hear me?
I'm not scared of you!
They start moving more erratically and looking all around. They think, oh, wait, Batman actually could show up. That by itself is badass. You really feel like a force of nature in these games. But messing with thugs is what is so satisfying. My personal favorite thing is leaving one guy left all shaken and terrified, and then you disable their guns so they're totally defenseless, and then you walk up behind them and wait for them to turn around. They freak out and they try to shoot you, but it's no good because there's no way they're gonna work at being all disabled and stuff.
Target is moving this way.
Oh, dang. The Batman done disabled my gun. He's gonna punch me. But like Batman punched them because you're Batman. Like if I punched him, it probably would hurt, but it looks stupid. But Batman punch looks not stupid. It looks awesome.
Get away from me! Get away!
Anyway, that's all for today. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you think. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. Best way to see them first, of course, is subscription, so click subscribe. Don't forget to enable notifications. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter at Falcon the Hero. We'll see you next time right here on Game Ranks.